And at this moment, as the Supreme Court had struck down Section 4 and 5 of the Voting Rights Act, these are the same things that happened during that brief period when we had our freedom during Reconstruction. And when our, I forgot your first name, Melina asked us who knew who Carter G. Woodson was, well, I was taken back. And then I thought, oh my God, there are people in this room who don't know who Carter G. Woodson was. And then I'm troubled because when I was raised, the most important thing was that I would know Black history. So my parents made sure that I knew our history, that I understood that my great-grandfather was born a slave, and that my great-grandmother was born a slave, and that I knew our history, and that we understood upon whose shoulders we stand. And then I have a bunch of Jewish friends who always have a Passover dinner. And when they all come together for the Passover dinner, the oldest member of the family sits with the youngest member of the family, and they read something that's called the Haggadah. And on the Haggadah, they talk about the history of the suffering of Jewish people. Well, Black people don't do that. You know, all of a sudden, you know, we got free the other day, and so we've arrived. And it's sort of like those people who were no longer slaves, and they didn't want people to know that they had been slaves. And so when you listen to slave testimonies, it's like we try to distance ourselves from our past, from our history, when that's the very thing that we need to be proud of. We stand on those shoulders. And if you are honest with yourself, you have to realize that this year will be basically the 50th anniversary of the Civil Rights Bill. That only gives us 50 years of supposed freedom in the United States of America. That means prior to that, we had 244 years of slavery and then 100 years of Jim Crow. That's 344 years. We just got free the other day. We were enslaved a lot longer than we were free. So who are we today to not be able to know our history, to not be able to tell our children? Everyone in this room needs to know our history. Everyone in this room needs to be able to reach back and tell our children. And we cannot rely on educational institutions to teach our history. Black history is something that children are taught for a second in classroom, and they may know, okay, you learn Rosa Parks, you learn Martin Luther King, and maybe Malcolm X, and that's it. And that's all they know. But how can they aspire? And I mean this seriously, and I'm going to take this little second. How can they aspire to want to do more if they don't know their history? If they don't understand that the slaves didn't have the opportunity to read, or that we had all these years of oppression, or that when Billie Holiday sings about strange fruit, that there was something called lynching, or that there was a little boy named Emmett Till, and all of a sudden Emmett Till was playing out the same way with Trayvon Martin. How else, if our children don't know this, if we don't know what to teach them, how are they going to know, and then how can they turn things around? So I think our history is essential. I think it's important that every adult needs to know, and I think when we change it in the family, and then we have churches that create an after-school program, like a Saturday program that they have in the Jewish temple, and there we sit our children down and we demand that they learn. And then we go forward. And then it won't be like you were saying back in the day, because back in the day for you was the day for me. I'm 56 years of age. I grew up in another world. I grew up into the world of segregation. I was born when there were separate color water fountains. I was born in the South. So I know these things, and it wasn't that long ago. So don't sit and be like we're privileged and we've arrived, because we haven't.